guys? This is While Supplies Last, the marketing podcast where we talk about all things business and marketing.
My name is Laura.
And I'm Gabby. And today we have Howie with us from Sharkmatic Advertising. So, Howie is a philanthropist, he's a businessman. He's been in advertising for over 30 years, is that right?
That's correct.
Yes, and he's great. He's everywhere. I say he's everywhere. He's doing everything everywhere all at once.
I just left the gym, and my client that owns Anytime Fitness said, "I'm tired of following you on Facebook." He goes, "I'm exhausted just watching your posts."
Just every second is a different one. That's good,
Right.
though, to be everywhere.
Look, one, I feel like I'm running out of time.
Mm.
There's no prognosis of me passing away anytime soon, but I feel like I have so many things I want to accomplish and so many things I want to do and get done that really gives me my energy and my drive.
Yeah. And I think what really keeps you motivated to do everything is really what it's about too. Like you want to do these things. You want to be able to accomplish these things. So that's why you have a lot going on all the time.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I know there's a term for it called FOMO, fear of missing out,
Mm-hmm.
but I've been doing this since before we had that term. So
Yeah.
I
You had
didn't even-
FOMO
I
before
didn't- yeah,
FOMO.
exactly. I didn't even know it was a thing.
Yeah. Can you give our audience a little bit more of an introduction to who you are and what you do?
As I was getting my job interviews right before graduation, I got a happenstance interview with the chairman and CEO of Citicorp Venture Capital. And it wasn't because I was so smart or had great connections, but it turns out that he was the friend of a friend's dad. So I got this interview, and he and I were talking, and he said, "I could hire you to come work in finance with Citicorp. However, I feel like you're better suited for something else, your personality, the fact that you're telling me that you love these marketing classes. Did you get any other offers from other companies to interview other than financial services companies?" So I said, as a matter of fact, I did get a couple from insurance companies and Procter & Gamble in consumer products, sales, and marketing. He said, "You should follow up with that." So I did. I went to a recruiting conference. I ended up loving the job description. So I moved to Dallas. I worked for Procter & Gamble in sales and marketing, and I did work in Cincinnati. And Procter & Gamble is and was at the time for sure the largest consumer products company in the world. They're the ones that invented the soap operas and those kinds of things. That's why they're called soap operas, because they would sell soap, ivory soap, during these radio shows.
Wow. I
And,
didn't know that.
Yeah, maybe let's call it late 1800s, early 1900s.
Mhm.
And I loved it. Then I went to work for an international ad agency that handled Procter & Gamble business. Then I spent 2 years there. Still loved marketing, forgot all about finance. And then when I was in my mid-20s, I knew everything. So I decided to start my own ad agency. I took out a $10,000 loan at 10% interest, and I lived in a small one-bedroom apartment behind a Kroger, and the whole place was spray painted. And I got started with business, and it was really networking and the right mentors helping me in marketing that now, if I fast forward to today, I've owned my ad agency off and on for 3.5 decades. I've sold it twice, rebranded or renamed it 5 times. And then I've been a partner in at least 25 other businesses, some related to marketing, some not. I had a meal prep company, a moving company, had a video production company, I had a direct mail company, a T-shirt, silk screening and embroidery company, and a whole bunch of other things that I had no business being in business doing. But, I was a serial entrepreneur, really loved it. And then right before the pandemic, December of 2019, I had a meditation, and I thought that 2020 would be the year of simplification. So I have 3 kids. I've been on 100 nonprofit boards. I do a collection drive for the homeless every year. I'm running like crazy with 4 companies, 3 of which had employees, 1 didn't. I'm running all these things. And I said, 2020 is going to be my year of simplification. So I sold my interest in 3 of the companies, and then I kept only the ad agency, Sharkmatic Advertising. And then we all know what happened 3 months later. In March of 2020, the pandemic hits. The businesses that I sold, you could see that they were really struggling. We lost 40% of our revenue within 4 months, 5 months. So I could see the trend. but I had the clarity and the experience to shift and pivot. So by the end of that year, 2020, we had made up 20% of our 40% reduction in revenue. But we were, more importantly, we were profitable without having to let go of anybody. And then we started doing work around the summer of 2020 for clients that had been really good clients and had been clients of Sharkmatics for years that couldn't pay us because they didn't have a revenue stream. They had been closed or whatever it was. We kept doing their work for free. And we said, no hurry in paying us. You don't even have to pay us back in arrears for all the work that we did. Right now, it's 100% free. The only thing I ask is that when your businesses come back and you reopen and you persevere through the pandemic, that you start paying us. And by December, 3/4 of them were already paying us. By the first quarter of 21, they were all paying us. The ones that owed us money during the pandemic and before the pandemic, some of them didn't pay us, but we didn't do work for them anymore. So they kind of went away, and we made room for the right clients. When I look back now, I can tell you that Sharkmatic has completed 1,100 websites. We have worked for 1,500 clients. We currently have just under 500 active clients. And then we do search engine optimization for about 100 clients. Most of them local, some regional, some statewide. And we do a little bit of national stuff, but most of our work is around here. It's kind of like the Frostbank commercial. We're from here, so we like to do work with people around here.
Yeah. I think mentioning your ad agency, can you give kind of a brief description of what advertising is and what it really does for companies?
Yeah, it can take a product or a service that nobody knows exists and make people long and want to pay for it. You know, they long for it. They're like, oh, I didn't know that. So case in point, a new client, Microgreen Gems, they grow microgreens. I know what microgreens are, but I didn't really know what they were. I had just heard of them, and I've seen them garnished, you know, at the fancy restaurants. They use them as a garnish for the food. Well, it turns out after meeting this guy that that little plant has all the nutrients that the entire plant would have. So the microgreen has, by weight, 10 to 40 times more nutrients than the equivalent amount of weight in a leaf of spinach, for example. And there are 80 to 100 different species of microgreens. This guy grows 15 to 20 of them, and they're a superfood. So like, wow, I'm all in. So now I've mentioned it just since last Thursday to 10 friends, clients, restaurant owners, chefs, my trainer. I want microgreens. I need them. I want them. So now I'm putting them together. And, you know, he picked up a dozen clients, all by getting the word out. Now that's word of mouth. So I can only talk to a certain number of people, right? But now we're going to build them a website. We're going to do search engine optimization. We're going to get more eyeballs of people that don't know he exists onto a site. And then they're going to be like, oh my God, I need that. I want that. And there's going to be keywords there. For example, iron deficiency, pre-diabetic, those kinds of things that this can help with. And that's really the thing. Look, as much networking as I go out and do, I have 10,000 contacts of people that I know on a first name basis on my phone. So I know a lot of people. I'm not going to live long enough, and the days are not long enough for me to tell everybody what I do. But if I can build a website and promote it through marketing, digital marketing, advertising, etc., then I get people that ordinarily would not know about me to want my services. They already need them. They just don't know that I provide them, and they don't know we exist. So that's really marketing. Now, word of mouth is fantastic. I love word of mouth. This is a supplement that supercharges your word of mouth. And even when I'm in front of two people, I'm not going to remember everything about my company or have time to explain all of it, but it's all somewhere being advertised for the public.
Yeah. It's about awareness.
Yes.
Bringing awareness to your brand and having people want to know about that thing or know about it and then want it.
Yeah. Great word. That's actually one of the big learning components of marketing. And it has to happen in this order. You can think of this acronym as AIDA, AIDA, okay? Awareness, desire, awareness, interest, desire, and action. Okay? There can't be a transaction without that. So how could somebody buy something, that's the purchase, if they're not aware of it? So you have to make them aware of it. So advertising helps people become aware of this product or service that's being advertised. The person who sees it is now aware of it, has to develop some kind of interest in it. Then they have to desire it. Now, you know what? I need to get in the car. I need to go find it because I want to buy it. And then action. That's the purchase. So AIDA, awareness, interest, desire, and action.
Yeah. And that makes sense when you think about it too.
Yeah. It makes me think back to the like purchase decision model and how like when customers or like potential customers first come in contact with a product or service and they're trying to figure out if they really want it or not, and they go through different processes trying to figure out if they do want to actually purchase.
Yeah.
So when they actually do make
That's exactly right. And what a lot of advertisers or, the owners of a company that are selling a product or a service, one of the mistakes that they make is they have a pop-up, let's say on their website, or they do a direct mail with 20% off. That's okay if somebody already is aware of what you're doing and they have an interest and a desire, then they can, but if they don't know about your product and you lead with that, it's not going to resonate and people are not going to take action because they don't know what it is yet.
Yeah. They're not going to use a coupon for something they don't even know what they're going to use it for, which is true. And I think about that whenever, like, I'm shopping online or something like that. I don't know about this thing until I find it on an ad. And I'm like, oh, I want that shirt really bad now. And then I go to the website and then all that. So really thinking about our buying process as a consumer helps translate into businesses. And when you own one, when you're an entrepreneur, you think about that view also.
Right. And what a lot of consumers don't realize is that there are so many avenues of advertising. My kids are all advertised to all the time, and they don't recognize that it's advertising because it might be a social media influencer wearing something, and then there's a link to where it's sold, and then they're like, oh my God, Dad, I need to get this because so-and-so was wearing it and whatever. And sure enough, it's a funnel.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Or like the advertisements in movies are like subtle. It's like product placement.
Yeah, product placement. So this watch it was used in a couple movies. It's a Panerai, and Sylvester Stallone and somebody else used it in movies, and that's how people know about it. I didn't know about it until afterwards, but people are like, oh my God, that's a Panerai, that's a Daylight Just whatever, and they use it in this movie. Sure enough, I go look for it, and it's true. But that's why people buy certain cars. That's why people buy certain dresses. That's why people buy certain sunglasses, because they saw them. I mean, if you look at the movie Top Gun, the original one that came out, a lot of people went and bought those Ray-Ban aviators. I mean, it became the #1 selling sunglass for Ray-Ban, that style.
Yeah. There's different methods on how to introduce your product or service.
Right.
It's funny. I kind of think of Mean Girls because all the girls in the school were obsessed with Regina George. Like, Regina George has this, so I need this.
Yes. That's right.
Excuse me.
All right, but what would you say are some common misconceptions surrounded by advertising?
Let's look at it from the business owner's perspective, not the owner of an ad agency, but a business owner that wants and needs to promote their business, okay? So one of the mistakes that I think that they make is that they don't advertise and market all the time. I tell clients that the time to advertise is when you don't need customers. So people think like, well, I'm only going to advertise when I need customers. But then when they don't have customers, guess what else they don't have? Money. Because they have to pay the rent and they have to pay their salaries of the staff and they have to pay all the other fees and materials associated with their business. Guess what? They don't have money for advertising. And they're like, well, how am I going to get clients if I don't have any money? Well, it's that chicken or the egg thing. It's got to be a line item in your budget that you're going to spend a certain amount of money on advertising, whether you have revenue or you don't. Go get a loan. Because a business that doesn't advertise, I can only equate it to something like running a car without gasoline. It goes in one direction and that's downhill, or like winking at somebody in the dark. You know what you're doing, but nobody else does. So if you know exactly what you're doing and you're not getting it out there through marketing, it doesn't really matter how good of a transmission shop you are. If nobody knows about it, nobody's taking their car there, and you're going to get no business. So one is advertise all the time. Whether you need clients or you don't need clients, just you should always be advertising and marketing. Another mistake that business owners make is, well, I'm just going to use all the free stuff. So I'll set up my own LinkedIn, my own social media accounts on Facebook, and then I'm going to put up 10% off, 20% off. Then I'm going to do all this stuff and bombard people. One, nobody cares. Number two, the algorithm is not going to help you. And if you're not giving them a compelling reason to like and follow your social, it's not going to get in front of enough eyeballs. And then they're going to ask you to pay-per-click, paid social, Google searches, paid, etc. That's, while it's not a silver bullet, that's paid advertising. I'm not saying it doesn't work. That's good. But it should just be one of the things you use in your arsenal. Social, paid and free, Google, search engine optimization, email blast, depending on the kind of business you're in, billboard, radio, television, print, They're direct mail. There's a whole bunch of avenues, and I understand why business owners are reluctant, especially new entrepreneurs, to spend money on advertising because they don't believe that there's going to be a return on investment. But advertising done correctly should have a return on investment. If you put in $100, you should get back $500. $100 to pay you back for the $100 you spent. $100 that covers the cost of materials for putting that stuff out. $100 for overhead, right? Rent, computers, electricity, water, and $100 for profit. So if you don't have a 4 to 5%, a 4 to 5x ROI, you might want to evaluate whether or not that marketing's working. And if your measuring stick is likes and follows, and I got 30,000 views on this TikTok, but the phone didn't ring and you didn't sell one more widget, exposure is good, but it might not be the right audience, especially if over time they're not converting to clients.
I think you mentioned tools and what's good for companies. What tools do you use that you would recommend, or ones more general, what you go towards, like email marketing or programs that you use for that?
So it's a good segue, and I'm going to answer your question, but I just told my 17-year-old son today, I said, you see, son, I use this as a tool. You use it as a toy. And it's why entrepreneurs like me that were doing business before the internet are so successful, even against people who only started working or starting their businesses after the internet was invented. Because a lot of the younger entrepreneurs and marketers, et cetera, rely too much on this as a toy and not as a tool. So I'm using contacts, I'm texting, I'm emailing, I'm sending links, I'm using WhatsApp, I'm shooting videos on this thing, putting up content. And then I leverage, well, you can't ignore Google. People say, well, there's other, there's Firefox and there's, Bing. Absolutely. Just go look at the market share. Google's 93%. And you're only going to spend a lot of time on one. I would go where the people are. We still do stuff with the other platforms, but that's where we put the lion's share of our budget and of our attention. And then I look at which tools are working for which client. So some clients don't need SEO. Some need direct mail. Sometimes I still do direct mail. You know why? Because it breaks through the clutter. 10, 20, 30 years ago, everybody was using direct mail, and you'd get a stack of mail in and people wouldn't go through it and they'd throw it away and all this. I had a direct mail company. And now, you go out to the mailbox. My kids, they're like, oh, we didn't get any mail. I'm like, I know. Well, tomorrow, next day, whatever. And then you get something, you want to look at it. So that kind of breaks through the clutter. Now, it's expensive compared to sending an email. You can send 10,000 emails by a click of a button. But it shows that you're invested. It also legitimizes that you're a real business, because some scammer is probably not going to like a scam artist, contractor that comes by and puts a little flyer or a crappy business card that they got from Office Depot, that would probably not do the roofing work, is not going to go through the trouble of setting up a website and sending out postcards and putting them, in an RSVP pack, the cellophane packs with all the cards. They're not going to go through all that trouble. Why? Because they're scammers. They're not looking to spend $2,000-$3,000 on marketing. They want to go get some crappy cards and go hand them out and then not do the work, take the deposit and not do the work. So in a way, it legitimizes you as a business owner. It also tells the consumer, hey, these people are invested. It looks like they're going to be here for a while. They also have an office. They also have employees. They also have a phone number. Can't tell you how many competitors I go up against that are web design companies that you go and there's 7 questions you have to answer. There's no phone number. And then there's a Calendarly. Make an appointment to see us, to talk to us. Well, what about that human interaction? That's another way us old timers are running circles around the young whippersnappers. You know what I mean? It's like I'm doing so. We got a client and we built 5 websites for them. They're an online university, legit, accredited, big. They're here in San Antonio. They said, we did a Google search. This was 21. Okay, so the pandemic wasn't over, but people were still sometimes wearing masks, sometimes not. It's Texas, whatever. So they said, we narrowed it down to 3 marketing firms. You're one, and then 2 other ones. We won't tell you who they are. And then we need a proposal from you guys. I said, okay. I said, before we do a proposal, I'd like to have a meeting with you guys. You guys, I noticed I already Googled you guys are in San Antonio, you're in I-10, your corporate office. Can we set up a meeting? I took 2 of my team members with me, and we met in person. Later on, they hired us, okay? I asked them, hey, so what was the differentiator? Why'd you hire us? They said, you're the only one from the 3 companies that we found that were local, and we wanted a local company so that we could meet with them and talk to them. You're the only one that asked for a meeting.
Wow. Yeah. You're
The
more
other
of a person.
the other 2, and one of them said is like 4 blocks away from us, and they didn't want to meet. They just wanted to do it by Zoom.
That's not personable.
It's not.
Yeah. How are you going to build a relationship with a client rather than just give them a product and go?
Yeah. I mean, look, we're sitting eye to eye. We're talking. I gave a talk last week to a group of entrepreneurs about micro expressions. I was in Las Vegas 2 weeks ago with my 2 teenagers. I have 3 kids, but the 2 older ones, they're not legal, by the way, to go to Vegas, but we weren't gambling or drinking. But, we were walking through one of the hotels, and my 15-year-old daughter says, oh, my God, Dad, you're so judgmental. And then my 17-year-old goes, oh, I know, totally. Did you see how he's at? I'm like, hey, wait, are you all talking about me? Yeah, Dad, you. I go, I didn't say anything. Dad, we saw the way you're looking at the way that people are dressed or when they're walking by and all that stuff. And it's absolutely true. Micro expressions, I'm looking like, I do that kind of thing. And, that says something. That says, I'm looking at how they're dressed. I'm observing and passing judgment
Yeah.
based on something that I don't really know about, right? That's what humans do. And we have these micro expressions that are very expressive. How are you going to do that on Zoom or on a call or by sending an email and all that? So you're not. That's why sometimes when you text and people have it in all caps, they think they're screaming or you might be mad at me. You need human interaction. Humans are social animals, and advertisers are creative people. And we thrive when we get to see and meet people. I've seen Gabby at 4 or 5 events now just in the last month. Networking, and every time we see each other, it's great, and knuckles and say hello, and we chat and we get connected and all that stuff. If I get requests all the time to join a podcast or to talk or do something by Zoom, and I've done some, I don't like them, so I'm not even accepting those anymore. I'm not saying they're not valuable, but this is where I thrive. I get to have a cup of coffee. I come to meet new people, exchange business cards if that's still a thing. I'm probably the only one that still gives cards. Everybody wants me to scan their phone and
We still
QR
have
code
cards.
and tap here and then whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's something about getting something physical and tangible, and then you have it in your pocket, and then you get home, you take it out, and you're whatever, and you're like, oh yeah, that's right. And you take a picture, then I send it to my office, and they scan, and then I still have it. Or I like the texture, and then that says something about them. Oh wow, what is this? This is like a silk feeling card,
yeah.
or sort of raised or whatever. It's like wow, they care about their image, they care about their branding, they care, you know.
Yeah, and that reminds me, one time we got a metal business card, and we always talk about it now. We're like, whoa, that was so cool. Like, it's
I
just
still have that one.
You
I keep it
do?
in my wallet.
Yes, look at that.
Yeah.
So there's a book that was written by, oh man, come on, Howie. The book is called Purple Cow by Seth Godin. Okay?
Okay,
Purple
I've
Cow.
heard of it.
Yeah. So Seth Godin is awesome. Look, first of all, he's very smart. He's a great marketer. He wrote a blog every day for 8 or 10 years. I mean, that was even before it was super popular. And he was writing every day. He would write. Okay. So and when you look at him, he's memorable. He has these cool glasses, red rims, sometimes whatever. He's like the short guy with kind of like, he has this kind of goofy, cool persona.
Mm-hmm.
So this book is called Purple Cow. No spoiler alert, but I'll bottom line it for you guys. He and his wife and another couple are vacationing in London, and they decide they're going to go to the suburbs of England. And they see these rolling hills outside of London with white picket fence and fog rolling and these beautiful cows just grazing on the pasture. And they take pictures. They're taking pictures. They stop and they're like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. Anyway, then 5 minutes later, they see more cows, more fog, more fence, more rolling hillsides. And then they look and they're like, oh my God, that's so nice. And then they see it again 5-10 minutes later, and nobody gives a shit at that point. Nobody cares. And so when they get back to the United States, they had their pictures developed. Let's call it the old days, before, when you had to go to Walmart or wherever, H-E-B, to get your photos developed. And they're flipping through the pictures. And they see the pictures of the cows and the fog, whatever. And like, oh my God, remember when we were so excited when we first saw it because it was so beautiful? And now we don't care. Even 10 minutes later, they didn't care when it was really happening. So he said, that's people's marketing. You copy and paste and you see what everybody else is doing and you do the same stuff. You get clip art and video clips, and you use language that you might develop on AI, and it all sounds the same. And you expect that the consumer's going to care about your message? He said, your marketing should be a purple cow. He goes, because I promise you that if we were driving around and we kept seeing cows and hillsides and fog and fences, and then we came upon one purple cow, we would have all taken pictures with it. We would have been talking about it for years to come. And when we got back to the United States, we'd be telling everybody, how was your trip to England? Oh my God, it was great. You're not going to believe this. I have a picture of a purple cow. What? They have purple cows? Oh, I don't know if they have one purple cow. And we saw it and we got a picture with it. And oh my God, it was so amazing. You're going to talk about it for years. You're still holding on to that metal business card. You're still talking about it now.
Yeah.
That's remarkable.
Mm-hmm.
That's a purple cow.
Mm-hmm.
If not, it's all the same. It's homogenous and nobody cares. They care right now, but later on, not memorable.
There has to be some differentiation that really sticks out because there's so much going on, so much advertising, so much businesses doing not the same thing, but along the same lines.
Absolutely. There's a lot of competition, a lot of messaging. Think about all the platforms that weren't around 5 or 10 years ago. Now, GPS gives you ads, texting ads, video, YouTube, unless you get YouTube Premium, which I think I overpay for that, by the way. I think I'm like, wait a second.
I'm on a family plan.
I know. Now I'm like, wait a second. $10 a month, that's absurd. Right?
I know.
$12 or $13.99. We're so used to free, right? Google,
Yeah.
Amazon ruined us. They're like, Dad, I need is it free delivery? No, Dad, it's only $3.99. No, I want free.
No, free.
I don't care if I pay twice as much, but I want free delivery. It's like, well, I want free parking, I want free delivery.
As long as it's there on the words.
Right. But you see what I'm saying? We get bombarded. I don't know the numbers, and I don't really care about the numbers. but it's thousands of images and ads daily or weekly or monthly or whatever. So to your point, how are you going to differentiate? You only have a limited budget. You got to get your oil change special out there for $29.99. How are you going to make it different? How are people going to remember it? How is it going to be remarkable? How are it going to be remarkable doesn't mean like rich or fancy. It just means people will remark about it, make words, talk about it. You know, if I drive by and I see that, the dealership, instead of $99 for an oil change or how much ever they normally charge, they're doing it for $39. Guess what? Now I'm not going to take it to a little oil change place because I can go to the dealership and get it for $39.99. And then if they tell me, hey, by the way, we saw that the alignment was off, we did this, we also rotated your tires, I'm like, woo, that's so nice. Yeah. And they give me a ride back to my house, and then they'll pick me up, and they'll what? Yeah. I'm like, wow, that's worth remarking about. Then when my wife says, oh, I'm going to just stop at the little lube place down the street, I go, no, you go to the dealership. Because now I'm remarking about it. I had such a great experience there.
Mm-hmm. And we experience that in everyday life too. Talking about successful stuff and campaigns. So is there any successful campaigns that you can talk about and what you think made them work well?
Okay. I can definitely give you some that I know why they worked well, but I'll tell you kind of a funny one, and then maybe we move on to another one. So we had a client that manufactured doors. Okay, they had this machine that you put the wood in there, and it shaves both sides, and it creates these doors. Okay, and then the wood shavings, they would sweep them up and save them because they were usually pine wood shavings. So I didn't know this, but horses like to sleep on pine shavings, like really like the horse farms with expensive horses and race horses and all that stuff. Instead of just letting them lay down on hay or whatever it is.
They're particular.
Yeah, exactly. They put down pine shavings. I don't know if it's therapeutic for them. I don't know if they like it, whatever. So anyway, we pick up a client that provides, among many other things, horse bedding and these bags with pine shavings in them. I'm like, oh my God, you're not going to believe this. We have a client that does pine shavings. They're like, oh, who is it? So-and-so? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, that's who we buy some from. I'm like, oh, no kidding. I'm like, that's great. So then I tell that client, I'm like, oh, what a cool coincidence. They're like, yeah, so what kind of things do you do for the door company, marketing-wise? I said, oh, well, we do website design, search engine optimization, et cetera. They said, oh, yeah, I don't know if we need search engine optimization. I don't even know if we really need a website. I go, look, everybody needs a website because somebody, in the old days, you'd want to meet with somebody and you do business on a handshake. Now people want to go see your web presence, and then they decide based on your reviews and other things if they want to do business with you. Okay, so we did a website for them. I go, what about search engine optimization? Nah, all of our, there's only, I don't know, 50 or 100 horse farms across the country, and we contact them all. And we send them samples, and they know about us and whatever. I go, that's fine, but I go, look, they change employees. They don't know. Sometimes there's this. I go, you tell me you hit every single horse farm? Well, we hit the ones that we know of, that whatever. I go, how do you find them? They said, well, actually, we do go like on Google and we search. I'm like, okay, well, He says, okay, you convince me. Go ahead and do it. So we do SEO. Their traffic goes from, call it, I don't remember the exact numbers, but let's say 50 or 100 unique visitors per month to 250, 300 unique visitors to like almost 1,000 uniques. So after about a year, I get a call from one of my employees. Hey, this company is canceling SEO. I'm like, why? They're kicking they went from like 50 unique visitors to over 1,000 every single month. They're like, yeah, you're not going to believe it. They got a call from somebody who was a horse farm consolidator. They bought 12 horse farms, and they're looking for a single supplier for these pine shavings for all the horse farms, and they want an exclusive relationship with them. And so when they made their deal, they bought all their production for the next 2 years. So I call the client. I go, hey, man. I go, what's going on? He goes, oh, yeah. I go, I heard that SEO worked. He goes, I'm so sorry. I'm canceling. But if you want, I'll pay you for the next 2 years but we don't want to advertise. It's just because we're not going to have any more product.
Wow.
I was like, well, I appreciate that. But no, you don't have to pay me for a service we're not providing.
Yeah.
It was one customer, the right customer at the right time. Of course, my client had the right product. And they sent samples, they tested it, they liked it, they bought some, they bought a truckload. Then all the trainers said, we love it. We need to roll this out to all the farms that we have and whatever. And then they bought all their production. Make a long story short, they ended up buying that division from this company, and the company sold out to them. Wow. Yeah. So now, why did it work? Because we're out there. You know what I mean? Because the client is out there and exposed. Now, does that happen often? It doesn't happen often. But you know what happens very often is that clients will tell me. I ask them, how did you find your customers? They said they found us on Google.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Google.
Yeah, Google.
Everyone uses
and that's SEO, And now there's optimization for mobile, for voice, for other ways of doing it. We optimize in Spanish for some clients. And I'll tell you, not to give away all my secrets, but it's amazing how few companies, even big companies, don't optimize in Spanish. So they're losing 5 to 10% of the audience in Central Texas and probably 40% of the population in South Texas by not optimizing in Spanish.
Yeah. And that is surprising that even big companies aren't catering towards that.
Right.
Especially with what the business they could get from that, especially.
Right. So there's ways of segmenting in marketing, and most unsophisticated advertisers, smaller clients, they don't have the budget, they don't have the experience, their agency doesn't know how to do it, and they don't segment. But I wouldn't use the same messaging to advertise to you or to Gabby or to me. You have to segment your marketing and design it specifically for an ideal audience, an ideal customer. Not everybody with money is your customer because not everybody wants to buy what you have to sell. So you start to look to see who's buying your product. Do you find any similarities among them? Really? That might be a good clue that that's your ideal audience. And then you start asking, what kinds of things appeal to them? What kind of pictures should I use? What kind of video? What kind of language? If most of your customers have PhDs, you probably don't want to talk at a 5th grade level to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really important to know who you're even trying to target to, because you don't know, like, if something, like you said, using the wrong kind of talking or not talking,
the wrong words, the wrong language, the wrong tone.
Yeah, it's really important. And I think a lot of companies need to know that, especially starting out, because when you're starting out, I feel like everyone's really ambitious and being like, I want to cater to everyone, but sometimes that doesn't work.
Right. And we kind of start over every time there's a big market reset. So there were tech bubble bursts, Y2K, housing bubble burst, 2008, the pandemic. All those are opportunities to restart and reevaluate your business. I mean, if you look at restaurants, most of them weren't prepared for takeout and delivery pre-pandemic. And then some of them that pivoted quickly and marketed properly grew through the pandemic. And they expanded through the pandemic while others closed their doors because they didn't adapt, because they didn't learn how to market and communicate what they're actually doing. And just because you're mixing up margarita batches and you have them there and you put it up on your personal social media and your friends and your tia came over to get some, that's not remarkable enough. Everybody and their mother was doing margaritas. Then you have Taco Cabana doing $2 frozen margaritas, 30 flavors, drive-through, and then their drive-through is full. And you can say, well, it's because they have money and they're a big company. Okay, so let's say that that's the truth. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to just shut your doors? Or are you going to go out there and stand, with a sandwich sign in front of Taco Cabana and saying, I have better margaritas?
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of like curbside, of how much it grew. So during the pandemic, I was working in retail, and that retail store didn't have curbside before. And then once everything happened, curbside became really prominent because that was kind of the only option for shopping at that point. And now you still see it. It's still sticking around. And it's still like Target. Target still uses it, and it's very
Right.
prominent still to this day.
Yeah. Walmart grew their online sales by more than $1 billion a year during the pandemic. And it wasn't just organic. It wasn't, oh, well, now people aren't going to the store, so they want to buy online. They actually hired a president of the online only division, and they did a lot of things to grow that business, including matching or beating Amazon, including having options for curbside, like you said, in the
Yeah.
store. A lot of the things that Amazon can't do. Delivery, but with installation, because they have real people on the ground, boots on the ground, you know. So again, those are examples of pivots, and those are big companies. But I can tell you examples of small companies that had one pizza shop that expanded to 3 or 4 during the pandemic, because a lot of people like pizza and they wanted delivery and they wanted pickup, and they were, not big fans of the traditional big pizza delivery companies that are old and tired and don't really care. But gourmet stuff. There's a big market for white glove service for high end things. Especially now with inflation and prices being high. Why not provide an even better experience and an even better product, top notch? If you're going to charge a high price for something, make it outstanding, make it extraordinary, make it the best that anybody's ever had.
Yeah. I think in these days, are there any major trends in advertising specifically that you see today?
There are trends. There are always trends, and there are patterns.
Mhm.
And then there are things that work that stop working, that later on when we try them again, they work again. I think the idea is look at what's working for a particular audience. So what works for me are texts and phone calls. What doesn't work for me are emails. As much as I should love email because it's less interaction, I can reply to many simultaneously versus one phone call at a time or one text at a time. I know there's group texting, but you know what I mean. Generally speaking, you can send out an email blast to 8,000 people, and you can only text to a few dozen at a time maybe. But I have 25,000 unread emails, so that doesn't work for me. But other people, they live on email, and that's the way to communicate with them. So I think you have to find what works with which clients and with which audience, and then apply more of that. But you can't do everything because nobody has enough time and money to do everything. So try to find one or two things that you do really well. So pick one or two social media platforms that you're going to really do well in, really that you like and that you get results from. Instead of being on every platform, copy, paste, and use some software that'll post all of them simultaneously, because then you're diluting your message. And again, most people don't care. And it's not really remarkable. I mean, like, are you promoting something great? Today, I took a tour of maybe 15 people at the Children's Rehabilitation Institute, and I posted, and I tagged the people that were there, and then I talked about what the Children's Rehabilitation stuff does for children with disabilities, and there was a call to action: message me or join us on the next tour. And then I put the date of the next tour on the post. And then I already got a few people like, put me down for next month. There's a call to action. There's a logical next step versus like, hey, look what I ate today.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they don't put what restaurant you're at. You don't put what you ordered.
Yeah. That's more personable. I'm not personable, personal.
Yes.
That's more like for your personal
Right.
stuff. If you want to grow a business, you have to have something there for people to even want to look at.
Yeah.
And you mentioned like putting the same thing on like every social media account. What about those people that follow you on other ones? They're seeing the same thing over and
That's
over
correct.
again.
That's
They're
correct.
not
And
gonna-
I'm guilty as charged, by the way. Sometimes I'm lazy and I put the same thing. But sometimes I'll keep things off of LinkedIn because they're not business. And then I do a business spin on the same post when I put it on LinkedIn, and I talk about how important it is to communicate and connect with your clients. And then I put that on LinkedIn. But on Facebook, it might be different. On Instagram, it might be less text, but more pictures and a couple of videos.
Yeah, I think even like those posts, like if you're having a sale and you say you put the same caption on this one and this one, even changing it up can still have a better effect than just copy and pasting.
Right. So, in terms of trends, look for old school ways to advertise and market, and then blend them in some way with new school ways. But don't dismiss all the old school ways because some of them are still working. In terms of trends, things change so fast that I don't know that there's anything quote unquote trending, but certainly having influencers or using the model of what national influencers do for national brands and localizing it is actually pretty cool to do and gets results because there's people that are local that are well known. They might be on the news, they might be local celebs, they might be whatever it happens to be. And then if they endorse your product or your service or they use it, then other people see that and they're like, oh, I want some of that.
Yeah, I think of those. Have you seen the San Antonio kind of influencers? They are local to San Antonio and they go to different like restaurants and stuff like that.
Yeah, the guy that wears the lucha mask.
Oh, I've seen him. But those
Yeah.
are I found a lot of businesses through people like that.
Right.
Yeah, and it worked. I did go to a lot
Yeah.
of restaurants.
Hey, by the way, I don't know if you know this. I don't know if he's an influencer, but he should be. Is the Texas Bushman, the guy that like scares people?
I've seen that one.
Yeah. So he scares people by dressing up like a bush, and then he sits in a big pot, and he sits there, and as people are walking by, he goes, "Rah," and he's dressed like a bush, like you know, like those hunting outfits that people wear, like so that the deer
Yeah,
don't recognize
the
them,
ghillie
whatever.
suits kind of
Ghillie
thing.
suits. That's
Yeah.
it, that's what they're called. And then so he does that, and then he moved. I think during the pandemic, he moved to San Antonio. So now he does it on the Riverwalk.
Yeah, I've
Okay.
seen
So like
those.
you just go to the Texas Bushman Riverwalk. Oh my God, they're hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean, he'd be a great influencer. He's getting thousands of views.
Yeah.
Has anybody fallen into the river yet?
I think I saw one where somebody dropped the phone, and I think he said something like, "That's going to cost me $300."
Oh
I don't
my
know if it fell in the
gosh.
water, but I think it fell and broke.
Man. But I have seen those. My dad showed them to me the other day, actually. It was really funny.
Remarkable marketing.
Yep.
I showed them to my kids. I showed them to my staff.
Well, now I'm gonna go look him up after this.
Right.
So you mentioned a lot that you do, and you have a lot of knowledge. What really keeps you motivated?
There are two things that motivate me in marketing and advertising. One is that I get to help small and new entrepreneurs grow their businesses. And then I get to keep and work with some big businesses like Washtub. I've done work for Methodist and other big companies. And I get to take my experience from having worked with big companies like Procter & Gamble and an international ad agency and the experience I've had with some of my national clients and apply it to my smaller clients and help them grow their business and their influence. Then from that, I get to make friends because if you're helping somebody make more money and grow their business, chances are they're going to like you and invite you to cool stuff like Spurs games or whatever. And then,
Yeah.
and then no good deed goes unpunished. So then I get to invite them to participate in the nonprofit stuff, which is what I love to do. And I spend probably half my time doing nonprofit stuff in San Antonio in my philanthropy that you mentioned earlier. And so I get to include them in that. And then they get to feel really good and fulfilled and have meaning in their lives other than just making money. Yeah. And then I get to use my ad agency and the influence we have to then help nonprofits grow their local influence and fundraising. So it's all kind of tied in together. It's like a web. And it's pretty awesome that I spent years trying to keep my nonprofit things away from my for-profit things because I didn't want to feel people think like, oh, he's just benefiting because he's helping the food bank or battered women's shelter or Haven for Hope because he benefits from it for his ad agency or whatever. But then I realized, you know what, this is all one big web. And a lot of the people that have become clients of Sharkmatic, I met them through nonprofit events. I didn't meet them by building a website for their business. I met them because we sat across the table or next to each other at a chamber fundraiser or some function or some nonprofit that we both care about, and we got to talking. And then I'll tell them why I care about kids with cancer. Then I tell them about my cousin Kimberly, who passed away from leukemia when she was 3.5. And then they said that they had a child that had cancer, childhood cancer, and that's why they're involved with Camp Discovery. And then we have now a level of connection that we wouldn't have if we just both like cars, or if we both just, showed up at some event and handed each other a business card. Yeah. So that's what keeps me motivated. That's why I do so many events. That's why I do so many talks. That's why I love being involved with nonprofits. That's why I like helping entrepreneurs succeed so that they can then invest some of those gains in making our community better. And, I've lived and worked in several countries, and I lived in Israel and Mexico, and I traveled throughout Central America and Europe and throughout the United States. I have not come across another city like San Antonio. This isn't even my hometown. And everybody says we're like a big city, but with a hometown feel and a small town feel. And it's true. And you can, I saw the mayor the other day, and we're chit-chatting, and we said we got to get together, go get a beer, etc. It's just so nice that you get to connect with people, and that we all have this and should have this common goal of making our community better. I remember when there were rioters downtown in Austin and Seattle and all these places, and burning stores down and breaking windows and all that. It happened for a little bit here downtown. And business owners from across the city and regular citizens, even if they weren't business owners, all went down there and all stood in front of these businesses and said, that's not happening here. And it pretty much stopped within a day and a half. I'm not saying the police didn't do anything. They were there too. But the police were in a lot of other cities, and they couldn't control these crowds. And here, we were like, not here, not now. There were some Holocaust protesters across from the Jewish Community Center, and I was coming out from an event with some Holocaust survivors. And there were people holding up signs that said, honk if you believe the Holocaust didn't happen, and all these other things. And they were pretty much run out of town pretty quickly because not here.
No.
Not
It's more like a
town.
family. Like, you're going to take care of the guy who runs the business down here because you care about him,
Right.
For sure. Everybody has ties, and I feel like everybody, for the most part, is loyal to each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm born and raised San Antonio. So it's interesting seeing other bigger cities and how different it is, especially in the community and how
Right.
different the communities are.
Yeah. And here, really, we're, multicultural, diverse city without all the segmentation that you see in Houston, San Francisco, whatever, Chinatown, this, Japan, like all these sections. And here, you have restaurants of all kinds all over the place, and people of different cultures and backgrounds and tastes and religious affiliations are going and eating at the other establishments and learning about that.
Yeah, that's interesting that you mentioned that. I've been thinking about that recently, actually, about how we don't have those, like you said, Chinatown and everything. We don't have that. I recently went to Houston, where they do have that. And it was interesting because I was like, we don't have that here in San Antonio. I wonder why. And thinking about it, it's because of our community, because there is restaurants everywhere, or people of different cultures everywhere in the city. Yeah.
But to wrap up, thank you for coming. Is there anything that you want to leave with the people about advertising, something for them to ponder on?
I'll make it about advertising, and then I'll expand it too a little bit, okay? So if you want, we talked about, the purple cow and being your marketing should be remarkable. I would take that even further, that if you want to live an extraordinary life, you have to be willing to destroy the law of familiarity. So if you want to be extraordinary, doesn't mean rich, doesn't mean famous. It means outside the ordinary. You have to destroy everything that's familiar to you. Not your family, not abandon people, not, change the color of your hair. But you got to start doing things that make you a little uncomfortable. Something that might be working for somebody else, but you don't think that it's for you. Try it. Learn about it. As long as it's not harmful to you or to others, it might be what makes you unique and different. And I think most of us are taught to blend in, sit down, don't draw attention to yourself, etc. Well, if you can draw positive attention to yourself and to your causes, you're more likely to get more money, more opportunities. And if you use them for good, then there's no reason why you shouldn't get more attention, and more support, especially if it's helping a particular cause. There was a kid named Ryan, and when he was in grade school, and not here in San Antonio, made the national news. He had heard from somebody that the kids in Africa didn't have access to fresh water and that it would cost $200 to build a well. This is 20 years ago. So he went back to his parents and said, I need $200. He's in elementary school. The parents are not going to give him $200 and to build a well, whatever. So he didn't let the idea go. And he created a little thing where he was asking for donations in front of their local grocery store. He got the $200, gave it to the teacher. The teacher called the director of that nonprofit. The director said, well, the lady who came and spoke to you guys, she was a volunteer. She's no longer with us, unfortunately, but thank you so much for the $200. We'll apply it towards a well. He says, okay, well, isn't the well, don't they cost $200? He goes, well, I don't know if she said $200, but it's actually $2,000. But we'll apply it. Thank you so very much. Really appreciate it. So now what does this kid do? He decides he's going to raise the other $1,800 because he didn't realize that it was $2,000, not $200. So he starts to raise money. Make a long story short, through marketing, through influence, he ended up on the Oprah Winfrey Show. He's now raised tens of millions of dollars to build wells in Africa. And the original well is called Ryan's Well. And when he was a kid, the chief of that little tribe, wherever they had that well built, invited him to him and his mom. And there's footage on on Oprah's YouTube channel of him and his mom being there and how they showed him that the well is called Ryan's Well. That's a form of marketing. That's a form of getting your message out. And he made it a mission and a calling in life. It's got to be that important to you. Think about it. It's not just a business. It's your business. It's your livelihood. It's how your family's going to survive. And so, sometimes necessity is the mother of invention. And if you do what everybody else does, you can expect to get the same results that everybody else gets. So don't complain. You want to be average and ordinary? There's nothing wrong with that. There's some safety in that. Just follow what everybody else is doing and be a follower or whatever. But if you really want to be extraordinary, if you really want to grow a business in a way that's unique and different and gathers a lot of attention, and then you use that for the greater good, in my opinion, there's no better reward for entrepreneurship than being able to achieve that. And that's kind of my driver, and that's my closing message. Be extraordinary in your marketing, in your life, in your philanthropy, and everything you do when you meet others.
Yeah.
Be different.
Make an impact.
Make an impact.
Yes. I love that. Thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. We loved having you.
Yes, great.
Every time I talk to you, I've always learned something different. You're like, oh, look at this business. Look what they're doing. So I always appreciate that. I appreciate the business relationship that we've built together.
I love it. Thank you so much. And then, of course, you guys will tag me. Let me know how I can share it. And
yes. Mentioning that, where can our listeners find you?
Okay. So 2 places. One is my ad agency website, which is Sharkmatic, SHARKMATIC.com. And then on another website, which is my personal stuff, public speaking and events and philanthropy, HowieNestel.com, HOWIENESTEL.com. And then I'm on a lot of social media platforms. And so you Google Sharkmatic or Google Howie Nestel, and you should find something good.
Hopefully.
My kids will tell me like, oh my God, Dad only got like 130 views. I'm like, wait a second, I got 130 views? I go, that's freaking awesome.
That's 130 you didn't have before.
Exactly.
True. But yeah, thank you again. Once again, this is While Supplies Last, the marketing podcast. We're also with Peachtree Rose Marketing. You can find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. And then you can also visit our website, peachtreerosemarketing.com, to learn more. But all right, thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you again,
It's my
Howie.
pleasure. Thank you all for having me. This
Yeah,
is
of
awesome.
course. Sorry, have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.